At a casual family brunch, my sister rolled her eyes as I walked in. "Oh, I didn't think you'd actually come." Mom added, "Grab a corner seat. This row's for the important people." I nodded, ordered pancakes, then got up and told the manager, "Put it all on their tab." They didn't object. 30 minutes later, Dad was red-faced, yelling at the waiter, "$1, 600 for what?" I walked out and said, "I didn't even want to be there." The text message should have been my first warning. "We're all so excited to see you. Don't be late, Mason." Such sweet words masking what I now know was carefully orchestrated cruelty. But at the time, I actually believed them. After 3 guilt-laden messages from Mom about how hard it is to get everyone together, I reluctantly agreed to attend what I thought would be a normal family brunch. Walking into that restaurant, I should have turned around the moment I saw my sister Abby's eye roll. She didn't even wait for me to sit down before delivering her first blow. "Oh, I didn't think you'd actually come." But that was just the appetizer. My chair sat shoved in the corner like an afterthought, while the important people, Mom, Dad, Abby, her boyfriend Kyle, and our cousin Emma, occupied the prime seats at the center of the table. Mom barely glanced up as she waved dismissively toward my exile. "Just grab a corner seat. We're saving this row for the important people." I stood there for a moment, not even angry, just struck by how predictably cruel they could be. I sat down, ordered pancakes and black coffee, and said nothing. They didn't ask about my job, my life, or even acknowledge my presence beyond that initial humiliation. Instead, they chattered about vacation homes and Emma's dog's Instagram account while I sat invisible in my corner. When my untouched pancakes arrived, I made my decision. Standing up calmly, I walked to the front desk and found the manager. "Put everything for table 12 on their tab," I said, handing him my ID. They insisted. He looked confused but complied. I thanked him and walked out, leaving behind the first domino in what would become an all-out family war. 30 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. The fallout had begun. Apparently, someone had ordered Wagyu steak, the bottomless mimosas had reached their very real limit, and with mandatory gratuity for their large party, the bill came to $1,642.12. Emma even posted the receipt on her Instagram story with the caption, "This brunch is turning into Judge Judy." Dad had screamed at the waiter. Mom argued with the server about the impossibility of such charges, and Abby sat stunned into rare silence. They'd expected me to pay out of sheer obligation. None of them expected me to simply walk away. The group chat went dead. No passive-aggressive "thanks for coming" texts. Nothing. I thought they'd stew and eventually move on. I was catastrophically wrong. The next morning, I opened my door to find my parents standing on my porch like courthouse bailiffs delivering a summons. No warning, no knock, just stone-faced judgment waiting on my doorstep. They walked into my apartment without invitation, settling onto my couch with practiced authority. Mom opened with rehearsed disappointment about how I'd humiliated the family and ruined their attempt to show unity to extended relatives. When I asked what part of unity involved calling your son unimportant and banishing him to a corner, she ignored me completely. Dad produced a folded receipt like evidence in a criminal trial. "That's the bill," he said with courtroom gravity. "You owe us $1,600. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline that never came. He was dead serious, calling my actions financial manipulation and accusing me of coercing the restaurant, as if I'd hypnotized the manager or pulled off some Ocean's 11 heist. "You really expect me to pay for a meal I didn't eat and champagne I didn't touch?" I asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "It's about principle." Mom jumped in with years of accumulated grievances. I'd been pulling away from the family, acting like I was better than them, being ungrateful for everything they'd done. When Dad called me a leech, something inside me finally snapped. I told them exactly what I thought, that I'd been their emotional and financial cleanup crew for years, that I was done being the family punching bag just because I didn't scream or gossip or create drama. They'd taken advantage of my silence and patience, and that ended now. They stormed out without another word, slamming my door like a final punctuation mark. I thought that was the end of it. Some shouting, some guilt trips, then weeks of blessed silence. I severely underestimated how far they were willing to go. That night, I discovered my car keyed with deep gouges along both sides. At first, I assumed it was random vandalism until I checked the building's security footage. There was Kyle, pacing nervously before attacking my car with what looked like a screwdriver. I saved the footage, emailed it to Abby, and received only a read receipt in return. 2 days later, I came home to find my living room strangely spacious. My TV was gone. The building manager explained that my mother had come by earlier with a moving dolly, claiming she was taking back her property. The birthday gift from 3 years ago was apparently fair game for repo. They keyed my car and robbed my apartment, but I wasn't angry. I was calculating, because what they didn't realize was that I'd been quietly covering half of Abby's expensive private university tuition for 2 years, and I just decided to stop. No dramatic announcements, no warnings. I simply logged into the tuition portal and canceled my future contributions. A few clicks, and Abby's free ride was over. She wouldn't discover this until the next payment deadline in 3 days, and I knew exactly how that would unfold. The storm hit right on schedule. First came Mom's frantic, "We need to talk immediately. This is serious" text, followed by Dad's all-caps, "Mason, what did you do?" Then Abby called, sobbing, leaving a voicemail begging me to fix whatever glitch had happened. She couldn't lose her classes, the deadline was that day, and financial aid wasn't answering. I waited 5 hours before Kyle texted, "This is low, man, even for you." That one almost made me laugh. That night, they returned to my apartment, but this time they banged on the door like they had a warrant. I let them in, curious to see how they'd spin this latest development. Mom went straight into pleading mode. Abby was innocent. It was cruel to punish her for our family issues. Dad chose the offensive approach, accusing me of sabotaging Abby's future out of jealousy because she was the favorite. I calmly explained that I wasn't punishing anyone. I'd simply stopped funding something I'd never agreed to pay for in the first place. When Dad couldn't make the payments 2 years ago, I'd stepped in to help. No one thanked me. No one asked how I felt about it. They just expected it to continue indefinitely. I reminded them that they'd keyed my car, stolen my TV, and had the audacity to demand $1,600 for a meal I didn't eat. That silenced them briefly, until Abby delivered the line that sealed their fate. "You just love being the victim." I told them to get out. All of them. They could sell something, take out loans, ask Emma's Instagram famous dog to sponsor Abby's tuition. I didn't care. I was done. They left in complete silence, and I figured that would end it. But what I didn't anticipate was how far my parents would go to turn the entire extended family against me. Within a week, I wasn't just the villain in their story. I was the villain in everyone's story. It started subtly. Cousins stopped liking my social media posts. Relatives left group chats without explanation. Then came the direct encounters. At the grocery store, Aunt Trish, who usually hugged me before I could speak, barely nodded and turned away like I was a stranger. I stood there holding frozen pizza, watching her retreat as if I'd been diagnosed with something contagious. My cousin Jordan invited me for coffee, and within 5 minutes dropped the bomb. "Everyone's talking about what you did to Abby. According to family gossip, I'd abandoned her financially, and she was going to drop out because you're mad at your parents." When I asked where he'd heard this, he explained that Mom had mentioned it at Sunday dinner. Dad had added his own details, and Abby had been spiraling. I asked if he knew I'd been paying half her tuition for 2 years without being asked. Of course, he didn't. No one did. They weren't just turning on me. They were rewriting history. My parents held the family narrative pen, and they were erasing every part of me that didn't fit their victim story. The next attack targeted my livelihood. Melissa from work pulled me aside to inform me that my dad had called the office. He'd spoken with the receptionist, claiming to be deeply concerned about me, hinting that I might be having a mental health episode and could be unstable. I marched straight to HR and laid out the entire situation. I wasn't about to let them destroy my career on top of everything else. That evening, I found a cardboard box by my door. No shipping label, no return address. Inside were dozens of old family photos, Christmas mornings, birthdays, vacations, school plays. Every single one had my face either cut out or scribbled over with black marker. Carefully, deliberately, no note needed. The message was clear. I didn't cry or rage. I simply put the box in my closet and started applying for jobs out of state. I couldn't stay and watch myself become a character in their fantasy where I was the villain who destroyed the family. 3 days later, Abby called, genuinely crying for the first time I could remember. She'd been placed on academic probation because Kyle had been selling his university login credentials to other students. When the activity was traced back to her account, she faced possible suspension. "I need your help, Mason. Please," she said through tears. For the first time, there was a crack in the family mask, and still I couldn't do it. I told her to talk to Mom and Dad. She went silent, then hung up. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. When someone drags your name through the dirt and still expects you to save them, that's not family. That's manipulation wrapped in nostalgia. I knew they'd retaliate, but I had no idea someone was about to cross a line that would change everything. It happened on a Wednesday during a work Zoom call. My phone vibrated incessantly. My downstairs neighbor, the building's front desk, unknown numbers. I muted the meeting and answered the front desk call. "Hey Mason, you should probably come downstairs. Someone's here about your car." Outside, I found 2 police cruisers, a tow truck, and 3 officers standing next to my car, which was halfway up the lift. When I asked what was happening, they explained that someone had reported my car as abandoned, claiming it had been sitting without plates for weeks. I laughed, pulled out my current registration, and showed them. The officer frowned as he read it. "This doesn't make sense," he said, signaling the tow truck to lower my car. Then came the kicker. "Do you know a Kyle Jensen?" "Yes," I replied. "He made the report. Claimed you moved out and abandoned the vehicle." Kyle had filed a false police report, claiming I'd moved to Texas and left my car to rot. It was so absurd it almost worked. The officers filed an incident report and offered to let me press charges. But I declined. It wasn't worth the court time. But this was different. They'd escalated from petty revenge to legal interference, trying to weaponize law enforcement against me. That wasn't just desperate. It was dangerous. I didn't tell anyone in the family about the incident. I just waited. 3 days later, I called the university and had myself completely removed from Abby's records. The financial services representative mentioned that Abby's parents had already called to update the payment method. "They sounded surprised," she added. "I bet they did." That weekend, I packed a bag and booked an Airbnb 3 cities away. I needed space and silence to plan my next move. For the first time in months, I turned off my phone and slept without worrying about texts, calls, or retaliation. But when I returned Sunday evening, I found my apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing was stolen or broken, but something fundamental had changed. On my kitchen counter sat a single piece of paper with one typed line: "Run all you want." No signature, no direct threats, but somehow that made it worse. Someone had been inside my world and left proof. Not that they wanted to hurt me, but that they could. I didn't call the police. What would I report? No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, just an unlocked door and a vague note. My parents probably still had a key from when I'd moved in years ago, and I'd never bothered to change the locks. That night, I packed 2 duffel bags with essentials and booked a longer-term Airbnb. I started applying for apartments in other states. I didn't tell friends or coworkers. I couldn't trust anyone connected to my family. I needed distance, not another intervention. I texted my landlord about breaking the lease early and paying the fee up front. No explanations, just logistics. Within days, I was driving toward a new city 5 hours away, finally able to breathe freely with no family within 200 miles. But even distance couldn't stop their campaign. Unknown numbers sent messages like, "Everyone knows what you did." Instagram DMs from distant relatives accused me of ruining Abby's future over your ego. 5 more messages trickled in from people I barely remembered, all variations of the same theme. I didn't respond or defend myself. They'd already chosen their narrative. My childhood friend Matt called to tell me his mom had posted a Facebook message about a son who turned his back on his blood, and how sometimes the ones you raise can become strangers. The comments overflowed with sympathy. I told Matt I was good and wouldn't be around for a while. Now I live in a one-bedroom apartment outside the city. New job, new neighbors, nobody asking me to fund their lives or attend fake brunches where I'm unwanted. Some nights I still check the locks 3 times, not from fear, but from habit, muscle memory from a life I no longer live. Sometimes I wonder if Abby's still in school, if Kyle's still lurking around, if Mom ever regrets how far she pushed things. But I don't reach out. I don't ask. That chapter is closed. They wanted me gone, and now they have their wish. But if they ever try to find me here, this time I won't just walk away. I'll make sure the door never opens again. 3 months passed in blessed silence. No calls, knocks, or cryptic messages. I fell into a comfortable rhythm: work, new friendships, even quietly dating someone. I kept the family story simple. We didn't talk anymore. She didn't push for details. Then came the package. It arrived on a random Thursday, sent directly to my office instead of my apartment. The receptionist handed it over casually. It's marked personal. I took it to my desk and opened it carefully. Inside was a plain USB stick. Nothing else. No note, no explanation. I waited until I got home to examine it, using an old spare laptop instead of my work computer. The USB contained 3 files: a shaky, low-quality video, a PDF labeled statement, and a folder titled Insurance. The video showed me at my previous job from almost a year ago, standing by the elevator with a female coworker. We were just laughing and waiting for the elevator, but someone had edited it, zooming in and slowing down certain moments to make it appear inappropriate. I recognized the angle. It was filmed secretly from a stairwell window. The PDF was a fake confession written, as if I'd authored it, claiming I'd engaged in inappropriate workplace relationships and had a pattern of manipulative, unstable behavior. It read like something HR might leak during a scandal. The insurance folder contained screenshots, some real, others clearly doctored. Fake emails with my name, fabricated messages with impossible timestamps, and even a supposed resignation letter I'd never written. The realization hit me like ice water. Someone had been building this dossier quietly, long before the brunch incident, long before I walked out on them. This wasn't just revenge. It was insurance. A threat to keep me silent if I ever tried to expose their behavior. But here's what they got wrong. I'm not afraid of losing them anymore. I lost them the day they stood in my living room demanding I pay for their champagne brunch and calling me a leech. The day they keyed my car, stole my TV, and sent me photos with my face scratched out. That was the death certificate of our relationship. This USB was just a souvenir. I copied every file, made multiple backups, and sent copies to a lawyer and a trusted friend out of state. No explanations, just in case. I haven't responded to their implicit threat or acknowledged that I received it. But I know they're watching, waiting for me to fold under pressure. What they don't understand is that this isn't a Cold War anymore. It's a countdown.